Austin Andrews here with your beacon. Today we take a look at Trump's life and the next world war. Trump has had an effect on the country and its direction ever since his victory. Whether it be foreign policy or border expectations, the world is aware that Trump is coming. With that in mind, Trump has to make it to Inauguration Day to effect the change that he's trying to bring. Trump has already survived 2 shooter-style attempts on his life in the campaign to become president, but a stark warning for Trump has been sounded by a former advisor, General Michael Flynn. It does seem that through this moment, this has very much been Trump's playbook for the transition. General Flynn sounded the alarm about Trump's well-being just a couple of days after the election took place.
From my perspective, Trump knows what he wants to do. He's got, he'll pick great people, and there's going to be an establishment, sort of the rhino establishment, whatever you want to call him. There's going to be a political establishment elite that will try to pressure him to take certain types of people, right? That's a different issue. My thing right now is to message as much as I can, and I do this every time, and I've done this since really even before the election, is to message that these people are not done trying to kill him. So, and I don't say that lightly. So I'm not saying it because I'm just, reading it on the internet. So they're not done trying to get this man out of the way. So, on one side, out of one side of my mouth, I want to tell Trump, just hang out at Mar-a-Lago, run an operations center down there, have everybody come down to you to be interviewed, whatever, do those kinds of things, because they're going to say, well, here's your transition headquarters. Everything has to be different. The way he is taking back over the country must be done differently. He'll decide whether or not, he listens to what I'm telling him. But my thing is he's got to stay alive, because they're not going to give him the resources, Tim, to be able to stay alive, okay, that he should have.
For the last several weeks, if you have heard stories about Trump's picks for positions, Trump being visited by foreign leaders, whether it's Prime Minister Trudeau or President Milei of Argentina, all of it has taken place at Mar-a-Lago. People have even commented the question, does Elon Musk live in Florida now? Because Elon has been present at so many events at Trump's Florida club. Trump's safety is paramount, as many in the country don't want him to take his place in the White House. Now, beyond this warning for Trump's personal well-being, we also know that a different threat is hanging over the world. That is the threat of World War III. The pressures for the war are not just bubbling in Ukraine, where desperation may be setting in, but Tucker Carlson is making the case that the war machine in Washington is pushing for this war to not just continue, but escalate.
I think we're watching the most evil thing I've ever seen in my lifetime, which is the lame duck administration leaving the next administration with the world war, with the nuclear conflict, by allowing Ukraine, a proxy state of the United States, to strike within Russia. I think that people in Washington misunderstand Vladimir Putin, and they think he's a monarch with absolute power, which is not true. And Russian politics is complex and it's lively, and Putin is very concerned with his approval rating within Russia. He cannot appear weak. That's a huge threat to him. He feels that, I can confirm. If he can't hide attacks on him by the United States through Ukraine, either on Moscow or big civilian casualties, I think he will have no choice, in his view, but to launch a serious response against Ukraine or NATO countries, or possibly the United States. It seems like the most reckless thing that's ever happened in my life.
For Joe Biden, or whoever's acting in his name, to do this just 2 weeks after the country resoundingly rejected governance by the Democratic Party in the administration, and on his way out as an 81-year-old man, knowing that he has about 6 weeks left in office, to just say, I know that these are massive risks, but I'm willing to take them. I'm 81. I don't really care. And then to make it so much more difficult for the following administration to do what they promised to do during the campaign, which the American people voted for and wanted, which is to resolve this war. Instead, we're risking escalation with the world's largest superpower, nuclear power, over what?
We see these escalations in United States policy primarily as Joe Biden just greenlit Ukraine to be able to fire United States missiles into Russia. Now, these are longer-range missiles that can hit targets up to 190 miles away from the launch point, nearly extending Ukraine's target range by 140 miles. According to Glenn Greenwald, an American journalist, the issue with these ATACMS, or ATACMS rockets, is that Ukraine does not have the technology to pinpoint their own targets. Therefore, the United States military has to be involved in the targeting of these missiles. Here's how Glenn Greenwald explained the process.
But going all the way back to the beginning of 2022, this was an option that they had, which was we have these guided missiles called ATACMS, which are very powerful for attacking inside Russia. You can guide them specifically and very precisely to where you want them to go. Obviously, you have to get intelligence about where you want to strike. And the reason we never permitted the Ukrainians to use them is because the Ukrainians can't use those missiles on their own. In other words, if they want to launch these missiles, it's not just the U.S. giving them the missiles and then telling them, no problem, go and use them. It requires the direct involvement of the United States and or a major NATO country like France or the UK or Germany, because the Ukrainians don't have the guiding capability in order to know how to launch these missiles.
Right.
So this is not just us giving them missiles and saying, go attack.
Now, in response, Russia launched a medium-range version of their intercontinental ballistic missile, which is the first time that level of missile has been used on Ukraine. The same missile could have been outfitted with a nuclear warhead. On this particular occasion, it landed with conventional warfare in mind. The war is escalating, and the worry is about it going nuclear, with the Russian president being the one burdened with restraint in the current circumstances. Tucker Carlson says as much.
I find it so terrifying. I don't think I'm sort of overstating that. I mean, we are on the brink of a global war.
Trump is calling for peace, but the Ukrainians have signaled that the only peace that they will accept includes NATO membership. And it is very unlikely that Russia will agree to having a NATO member border their country. Stranger things have happened, but for now we wait and we see, as we hope that we do not enter into a nuclear exchange or some other form of World War III. I'm Austin Andrews, and I'll see you on the next report.